So I don't know I'm feeling this way at the time, right?
Of
All I
course. No.
blurt out to her is, and it's similar to, right, when my husband will just say to me, well, Suzanne, just stop doing it. I just want to grab an ice pick or something at the time.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh.
You don't understand. Hey, I'm Jen.
And I'm Suzanne. Today, we are going to talk about the chronic overcommitters in our life.
Ooh.
So I'm talking with my friend the other day, and she is telling me about the latest amazing party she's throwing, like a PTA event. And she's that gal, that friend we all have that does all the things, right? She's the teen mom. She's Miss PTA, she works, she does like family reunions. It's out there, like you name it, whatever that thing is. What do you say? You name it, she's done it.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everything she does is so first class.
Yeah.
She's just that person. Everything looks so pretty. And you just want to be anywhere that she has an event.
Right. You want to be in her orbit of events because they're all
yes.
awesome. Yeah.
Yes. I think we call her like the Pinterest mom, right?
Yeah, that's
like
what I call them, the Pinterest
looks
mom.
amazing and
Yeah.
beautiful and
it's
all
not
the
a
things.
put down. It's like a legit, like, you're amazing. I just love going because the amount of detail and they're so organized and yes.
And so the other night, and it's becoming more and more frequent, she's complaining to me about how she never has any time for herself. And she's getting kind of bitter and resentful to the coaches and to the parents. And when I mentioned to her, because I start to get frustrated, right? Because as she's talking, I'm getting frustrated. And in order to like release that pressure, the first thing I say is, well, stop doing it.
Right. And
she looks at me and she says, well, Suzanne, if I'm not going to do it, then no one's going to do it.
Now, why are you said you need to release your energy. I know I'm stopping you before you're even going, but is it she's making you uncomfortable because she's uncomfortable, or what is your energy you need to release?
I think it's twofold. One is she's uncomfortable and she's a friend and I just want it to stop for her. Right?
Oh,
like I want to fix it for her. I want her to be happier. Sure. I don't want her to feel this way.
Yeah.
And then on the other side for myself, yes, I'm uncomfortable because she's uncomfortable. And this isn't the person I know and love. This is a bitterer version that she acknowledges.
Yeah.
And also, like, maybe she won't help herself. Yeah. It's frustrating to me.
For sure.
So I don't know I'm feeling this way at the time, right? All I blurt out to her is, and it's similar to, right, when my husband will just say to me, well, Suzanne, just stop doing it. And, I just want to grab an ice pick or something at the time. Because I'm like, oh.
You don't understand.
Yeah. And now I realize I'm doing that to my friend, which doesn't feel great either.
No.
And so her thing is like, well, Suzanne, or no one can do it as nicely as I do. Or, she's got this whole array of things that she's convinced herself
are
true.
Yeah. A little bit of the martyr syndrome.
Yeah. And so as I'm sitting there, like I said, I struggle because I feel this frustration towards her.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, like we've talked about in other episodes, I start to feel it. And I like when we got off the phone, here was just me having an inane conversation with my friend who was telling me what's going on in her life. And I found myself frustrated with her.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today as I'm still working through it is, why am I frustrated with my friend when, again, she lives in a different state? We are not even in the same vicinity. And yet I'm upset about this. And so I just kind of want to work through it like we normally do of what are my thoughts, like discover kind of what it is that's going on with me.
So tell me what your real inner thoughts are, which is a little bit vulnerable when you're feeling frustrated with her, because usually if you're feeling frustration, like I always have like a whole thing that's running through my head of the things that I wish I could say, but I know would be horrible and not helpful. Right. But you're so like, because now you're feeling a little bitter And so I know for me, sometimes I'm like, well, why doesn't she just do this? And like, she's the one that's doing it. And why is she telling me? And why is she venting to me? And like, she doesn't even want to help herself. I mean, just horrible things that you don't actually think about your friend. And it's about you feeling frustrated. So I was just curious if stuff like that comes up for you.
For sure. My
Asking
inner
for a
Big girl
friend.
comes out. And for sure, all the thoughts that you just had,
Okay.
that you just stated, as well as what I'm realizing now too, is I see myself in her. I remember being the person that took on way too much stuff. And I kept making it about how everyone needed me.
For sure.
And I'm struggling because I want something different for her. Like, I feel so much better because of all the work I've done. And so I guess when I'm hearing the same exact stories in a dear friend,
Mm-hmm.
it makes me sad, uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
but most importantly, I'm frustrated because I want something better for her.
Right. I guess the next big question is, and I think I know the answer, but is she asking you for help or is she venting?
Jen,
Because we all need to vent. There's nothing against venting. There's nothing against having the martyr syndrome every once in a while. Like, again, this is not the shame game. I'm just using the terms that we use with each other because they're like cues and signals to each other that you're like, well, I really hate that you just said that to me. And I want to hit you with an ice pick or stab you with an ice pick, like you just said. But, gosh, I think I feel that way because you're right. So, did she ask you for help?
She absolutely did not.
Okay.
And I think this is why I like to look at my own thoughts. This is
Yeah.
the benefit to me of I
Yeah.
become a better friend
Yeah.
to her. Because if I'm sitting there having to kind of keep myself in check because I want to say all the things,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm not actively listening to her. I'm not actively involved in being her friend. And anything that I say comes out as sassy, as I'm sure it did, which is not
Right.
how I want to represent myself in our relationship, of being like, well, why didn't you? And why don't you?
Yeah.
And why are you doing this?
And you're not showing up for what she needs and where she's at. You're showing up for what you need and where you're at, which is no longer in that frame of mind and doing all the things and telling yourself it's for everyone else. And if you don't do it, nobody else is going to do it, which again, there is a lot of truth in there, but it doesn't make it your responsibility, which is a whole nother episode. But
For sure, yes.
be that as it may, in this situation.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right about that. And I think it's a great point of, and this is probably the big two takeaways I'm getting from it, is I see myself in her,
Mm-hmm.
and I've changed so much, and I stopped doing a lot of those things. I am by far perfect. I certainly struggle, as I'm talking about right now, trying to be a better friend. And but realistically, I realize how much I've changed and I want that for her, and I can't force that on her. And that's not fair. And like you
Yeah.
said, she's not asking for my help.
No.
So what
Yeah.
I need to do to be a better friend is to truly listen. And if I have an issue with it, I probably need to look back in my own life and be like,
Yes.
are we doing this in other places that we're also feeling frustration that's maybe coming out in a different way?
Mm-hmm.
So I think all of those things could possibly be true about this particular story.
And I think another takeaway, which is really hard because we're always thinking about ourselves and we're always experiencing our own emotions and like our own triggers and our own backstory and all the things we tell ourselves, is that when you're in a relationship and you're looking for connection, that person just wants you to listen. Like in my mind, what she's saying is like, hey, Suzanne, you're my friend, and I just want you to listen because I'm having a really hard time. And she's like releasing that energy. And our job as like a good friend is not to fix it. And that's really hard because it forces us to be uncomfortable with the fact that they're uncomfortable, but you're helping them because you're letting them release that energy. And should they ever come to a point where they want help or want advice or whatever, then they can ask. And I'm a believer, if you are really struggling and you feel the need or they're like on the verge of needing help, I think it's totally okay to say to them, do you want some advice or are you open to some advice or do you just want me to listen? Because I think it's fine. you're not being a bad friend for listening. Like, that's what they need. And showing up that way is so important. But it's just, everyone wants to fix it because it's so uncomfortable, especially if it's something that like you still struggle with, have struggled with, you care about the person. It's, to me, that's like a huge thing that everybody struggles with. So I don't know what you think about that. It's kind of a long diatribe. Just this one thing.
No, it's all really valid. And I just wanted to bring this up because as you're talking and telling me that, I start to feel shame about the way I've now treated my friend and about what kind of human being I am.
Ew.
And I want to just acknowledge that because anyone else who is working through this stuff, you're going to feel this way. But to me, this is how I grow and I get better. And how I become the better friend is facing these portions of myself that I don't particularly love and talking about them out loud. But yeah, the shame of feeling like I did something so wrong to my friend, when again, we'll go back to all I did was listen to my friend.
Yeah.
This was 100% my own internal thoughts.
Yes.
But I just
and
wanted
you made
to
a
note
suggestion,
that.
Which is fine.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's just thinking about what that person needs. And then usually it should also free you up from feeling obligated to fix it for them.
100%.
I don't know if you feel that, but like
I do. I
now
feel like
when
now
she calls again, you're not going to be like, oh crap, she's calling to complain. You're like, oh, poor thing. She's, and hey, guess what? You can answer because you're in a place to be there for her and listen and not, we listen and don't judge or whatever that new thing is going around. Or you're like, you know what? I'm feeling a little bit sassy right now, and it would not be a good time for me to listen and not judge. I'm not going to show up like a good friend for her. So I'm just going to text her and tell her I'm going to call her later or tomorrow or whatever. And I think taking all that pressure off of ourselves is so important too.
Well, and I think then we can show up for both people.
Yeah.
We can show up for ourselves
Absolutely.
and them. And I totally agree that next time I'll show up, I feel like I'm armed with something to remind myself. And then I can be more compassionate and be a good listener and know what it is. It's because it's that expectation of what she should be doing.
Yes.
The infamous should. So I think that that's very powerful for me.
Yeah. Good. So I guess for our listeners, like, when was the last time you were frustrated with a friend who continues to maybe vent about the same thing or vent about overcommitting or just needs you to listen and you feel this like intense need to fix it? Again, I think that everybody can always think of something right away, whether or not you want to admit to it. We have plenty more episodes to get there. So,
all right, that's it for today.
We hope you discovered something about yourself in our story.
See you next time. Same place, same sisterhood.